Homeless dog keeps following strangers on the street until people realize what he's really after. Animal neglect is a widespread and pervasive problem in nearly every major city. Some pet owners might have good intentions but lack the resources, while others simply abuse or abandon their charges, who are then forced to fend for themselves on the streets. A homeless dog named Buzu lived just like this in Romania. No one knew where he came from or who his previous owners were, but dozens of people passed by the filthy and hungry pooch every day without a second thought. Would Buzu ever find the loving home he deserved? As hard as it is to believe, people neglect helpless pets every single day all around the world. Case in point, Buzu, a homeless dog who roamed the streets of Romania. He was dirty, starving, and largely ignored by passers-by. Would he ever find a loving home? If you happen to be walking through the neighborhood where Buzu lived, you'd probably pass his makeshift cardboard home and not even bat an eye. Buzu was quiet and well-behaved, and he never bothered anyone. None of the people living in the surrounding area knew much about Buzu, other than he had no official home. He spent his days sleeping or wandering around the dirt roads, longing for attention and food scraps. Even though Buzu didn't have a proper home, someone had fashioned a shelter for him with a cushion, a cardboard box, and a bowl of water. By no means were these luxuries, but they were better than nothing. Every day Buzu roamed around his little area of the street near his tattered makeshift shelter. His ears would always perk up every time he saw another dog and their owner walking his way. Of course, the dog owners never allowed their furry friends to interact with Buzu. He was a street dog after all, and people understandably didn't want to risk exposing their animals to fleas or any diseases he might have carried. Every time another dog passed by, Buzu would spend a few minutes following slowly behind, hoping their owner would turn around and give him some attention. Sadly, they never did. Buzus would try to get the attention of other passers-by, but that too failed for the same reasons. People knew Buzu was calm and friendly, but they weren't sure how healthy he was, and they simply didn't want to risk interacting with him. Buzu would watch as dozens of people passed him each day. Occasionally, they'd look down and take notice of him, but no one ever dared to pet him or feed him. As far as they were concerned, he wasn't their problem. The poor canine would stretch out in the middle of the gravel street in hopes that someone would eventually want to play. He was always ready to spend his time with a friend. The problem was that he didn't have any. For hours on end, Buzu would search for scraps of food to get him through the day. It was difficult to find a substantial meal, but there were usually enough garbage cans in the area to keep him going. After eating old meat and rotting vegetables, Buzu would continue his aimless meandering. He would never venture too far from his cardboard shelter. He preferred to stay close to his bed. Buzu was so eager for attention that whenever he heard anyone shout or even talk loudly, his ears would perk up in hopes that someone was calling out to him. Unfortunately, that was never the case. One afternoon, Buzu returned to his cardboard home only to discover that his cushion and bowl of water had been taken away. Now he was forced to sleep on the hard ground or on the rough cardboard, and he had no source of hydration. Who would do something so heartless to an already struggling animal? Luckily, a rescue worker from an organization called Howl of a Dog heard about Buzu, and she set out to help. All it took was a few biscuits, and Buzu was more than happy to give her his affection. Once the rescue worker gained Buzu's trust, she coaxed him into her car and brought him back to the shelter so he could finally receive proper care. He was as calm as he could be for the entire ride. Back at the Howl of a Dog headquarters, veterinarians discovered that Buzu's fur was riddled with fleas, and he was missing tufts of hair due to dermatitis. He was long overdue for a bath. Buzu happily welcomed all the helpful treatment, and after the bath he looked and acted like a brand new dog. The shelter's veterinarian started him on medication so he could regrow all of his missing fur, too. After a hearty meal, Buzu was treated to something he'd gone without for a long time, a comfortable, clean bed. He seemed happy and healthy, but he still had one major problem. Would he ever be able to find a permanent place to live? It's so sad to think about abandoned animals, but the good people at rescue organizations like Howl of a Dog are always trying to help. Please share this with your friends and family.